One of the things you may have noticed that I've started doing is I've started combining patterns together. And this is going to be one of the most important concepts when you want to build really sophisticated prompts, is you need to think through how to apply multiple patterns in conjunction with each other in order to solve the problem that you're dealing with. So rather than just thinking about, okay, which pattern can I use to solve this problem? Instead, what you want to think about is, okay, which pattern will solve certain aspects of the problem, and how would I combine those patterns together? And we started to see an example of this with ask for input and alternative approaches. Ask for input is a pattern that can be applied with a lot of other patterns. In this case, we're applying it in conjunction with ask for their provide alternatives. And so we've got alternative approaches and we've got ask for input, and they're being put together to build a prompt that's solving the overall problem. Now, what we're going to see throughout this remainder of this course is that this is a way we build really, really sophisticated prompts, is to think about taking multiple patterns and combining them in interesting ways. Now, if you think back to some of the patterns that I introduced in the course and some of the examples I gave, now that you know more of the patterns, you'll probably see that I've actually been combining patterns all along in different examples. So in gameplay, for example, I probably used ask for input. And in gameplay, I used probably the persona pattern. And so you can see how putting things together helps us solve the overall problem. And so when you're going and you're trying to tackle some new complicated prompt that you need to engineer and develop, you want to think about, okay, what are sort of the fundamental pieces to this problem? And do I have existing patterns that I know about that I can use to hopefully tackle all of it? But if I can't tackle all of it, can I use patterns and apply them to as many different pieces as possible so that your unknown piece that you really have to start from scratch and invent something new, that it's as small as possible, that we can start with as many pieces as possible with a roadmap for them, a pattern to apply. And so that's what we're going to be doing. Now, it may start to seem more complicated than it is, but at the end of the day, what we're still doing is we're still building up language, right? We're still writing in natural language. We're still writing sentences. We're still communicating. We're just thinking intentionally about the patterns in our language. And we're thinking about what are the statements in the organization of those statements in order to solve the problem. And so in some ways, combining patterns is really doing a more powerful version of programming. We're starting to take different sort of programs or instructions that we know how to use and put them together in more complex and sophisticated ways in order to have prompts that have more power to them, that have more depth to them. And again, you know, don't feel that this is something you can't do. Everybody can do this. At the end of the day, think about it. You're just describing in words what you want done. You're still describing in language what you're trying to accomplish, and all this is doing is helping us think about what should go into the instructions. If we're going to use this pattern, it's giving us a set of commands, a set of statements that we need to include, and sort of an organization for them. If we're going to use this pattern, we're going to have a set of statements that we're going to include. And oftentimes putting things together is simple as just taking the statements from each pattern and making sure they all show up in the prompt. Sometimes it's that simple. Sometimes it's more nuanced, and we may need to make sure, you know, a certain statement ends up in a certain place. Like with the ask for input pattern, we probably always want the ask for input to show up at the end of the prompt, because otherwise it doesn't work nearly as effectively. So although putting patterns together can be a little bit tricky sometimes if you have to figure out where things should go, most of the time it's as simple as putting the statements together. So as we go through the rest of the course, what I would encourage you to do is to notice when I'm using multiple patterns together to solve a problem, and to think about, as you're trying to tackle new tasks with prompt engineering, how to use multiple patterns in conjunction with each other to solve the problem.